right, it's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? It's
Thursday.
Thursday. It's Thursday. Holy cow. Happy Thursday, everyone. We are live on social media for the Little Nessie Happy Hour podcast. Happy Thursday, Ron.
Thank you. Happy Thursday, David. We're an hour late because we were happy houring without our audience.
We I posted on social media about 2 hours ago that hey, we're going live in 1 hour and some technical issues, last minute stuff. But hey, if you're with us, we're glad you're with us. We're gonna go live every Thursday, talk mortgage, talk marketing, talk interest rates. Last week we talked about Sydney Sweeney. So a little bit of everything. And I think last week was the day after the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle thing kind of blew up, and it just continued to blow up. So we're going to talk about relevant pop culture, but mostly mortgage and marketing, AI, all that stuff. But hey, this week we want to encourage you to comment and interact with us. So we are going to give away a free T-shirt today. Actually, Ron, should we give away 2 free T-shirts today?
Let's do two, Dave. What did we do? Three last week?
We didn't do any last week. We promoted our gear, just that it was on sale, but we didn't give away any for free. So we'd love to hear from you, and we'll give the top 2 most interesting comments or questions a free T-shirt. We'll reach out to you after. We've hired a third party, non-biased source to be able to decide who those T-shirts should go to. Not really. I'll probably have my daughter pick the most interesting question or comment. But yeah, if you comment, question, top 2 most interesting or thought-provoking questions, we'll send you a T-shirt. We've got about a dozen of them on our website at littlenessie.com/store. So
Let me just add. You have a good chance of winning if you make a comment or a question.
no family members. Sorry, the
Family
Stowers
members
ladies
are
who are
excluded.
watching us. No family members can win.
They need
let's
to.
get to topics, Ron. Talk
Yeah,
about
let's
what we're
do
going to
it.
talk about today. You ready?
Yeah, love this topic. We're going to talk about Rocket's Q2 shareholder report, and it has unbelievable data. And then we're going to get into ICE's 2025 buyer, seller, renter insights survey ebook, which is another great resource. And then we're going to talk about, the structural upward pressure on the natural or neutral interest rate, meaning long-term interest rates are probably higher for much longer.
All right, but we're gonna add a section in here called "From the Gut" from me. So I'm gonna give a little bit of thoughts on what's trending, what's new, typically from a marketing perspective. So here we go with "From the Gut" from Dave.
Hey, David,
You had a question, Ron. I'll
no, I
I'll
was going
wait
to make
before I
a,
start.
I was going to make a comment last week. You had Sydney Sweeney as your from the gut topic, and somehow you're able to cut to that picture like 15 times in our 60-minute podcast out of that. So I'm so curious what it's going to be today.
I'm talking YouTube today. So YouTube just updated its monetization policy, and honestly, I'm excited about it. So they're cracking down on what they're now calling inauthentic content, stuff that's we've all seen it, stuff that's repetitive, mass produced, low effort, some AI generated stuff, and it's honestly everywhere. If you're on shorts, whether it be Instagram, YouTube, it's everywhere. Their new policy, it's not about it's not about banning AI, and it's not about necessarily policing creativity. It's about raising the bar. Again, if your content is mass produced, repetitive, or feels like it was slapped together just to chase views, that's not going to get paid going forward from a monetization perspective. And to me, that makes sense. We've all seen this type of content, the same video reused over and over, maybe just in different ways. Generic AI voiceovers reading scripts that sound like they were written 15 years ago, or stock videos with stock music and no original thought to add to it. And the people pushing out these videos, they're not bad people making this stuff, but they're not adding anything to the conversation. There's no additional perspective, no additional point of view. It's just kind of a rinse and repeat. Now, this example I'm about to give isn't necessarily an AI example or an example of people using AI, but it's more of a format that's become more and more popular over the last couple years. You've probably seen it. It's the type of short form content where it's just a split screen, like you can see here, or someone's face. Maybe they're cut out using a background removal filter and they're just laughing or reacting at someone else's content or video the entire time with the goal of using the original video's popularity just to get clicks and engagement for themselves. And quite often these clips, they're literally the ones that they use, they're 5-second clips of themselves laughing or reacting, and quite often they're on a loop and they just paste it, copy and paste over and over, and it's not adding anything to the original video. It's not original, it's not valuable. And now, thankfully, from my perspective, it's not monetizable either. That's a tricky word to get out, monetizable. But it's not YouTube's crusade against AI. It isn't YouTube banning AI. They're saying use AI all you want, just don't use AI and don't mass produce content using AI. And this is where I think in a lot of times for people in our space, in mortgage, in real estate, small business, where we need a little bit of clarity. So if you're a loan officer, you don't need to panic. This isn't going to affect you. It's not about you. If you're using tools like HeyGen or 11 Labs, or there's some AI built into CapCut and captions, unless you're trying to become a YouTube influencer and monetize content through views alone, this policy, it's not really going to affect you directly. But here's the thing for me, just because you might not be making money directly from YouTube in the form of revenue, ad revenue from your content, it doesn't mean that you're immune to consequences of low effort video either. If your strategy is push button, get video, that's a problem. If you're solely relying on CapCut or captions to pump out shorts that looks like everyone else's, you're blending in. And in a saturated space like ours, blending in, it's the fastest way to really just disappear. I know, and I'm guilty of this myself. I know people love to say done is better than perfect, and sometimes that is true, but done and forgettable is a waste of time. Even some of the video marketing companies that edit your footage for you, they're just running your footage through the same editing apps that you could use yourself and pretty easily and with low cost and low time commitment. There's typically no brand strategy, no creative direction to set you apart, no originality. It's really just more of a plug and play and post type strategy. And that, while done is better than perfect. It might check the content box, but it's not really doing anything to separate you from the next 10 loan officers down the street who are using the exact same tools. And so here's where I land on this. YouTube's new rules. It's it's use AI as a tool and not as a crutch. That doesn't mean that you need a production team or fancy gear or studio lighting or having Chat GBT have it work the perfect hook for you every time. It just means that your perspective is what makes it valuable, and not your editing app and not your fancy sound effects and graphics. I am a huge fan of AI, use it every day. It saves me time. It helps me think. It helps speed up my creative process. And Ron and I are actually working on an AI video editing app as well, but it'll be different than the rest because AI can't replace insight per se. Uh, Ron would probably argue with me on this. It can't replace experience. It can't replace you. And so the people who win are the ones who combine tools with taste and human experience. And so if you're creating content, whether it's for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, don't just chase those views. That's what YouTube is going to start penalizing people for. Chase value, chase relevance, and chase real. In this new content landscape, authenticity isn't just what people want, it's what the algorithms want too. So, Ron, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I got a couple, and Dave, that was great. Thank you. First, I would say done is better than none. Done isn't better than great. Done is just better than none. And then you use the word monetization, but I see that as just being the algorithm, how it prioritizes you, whether you're trying to make money or not. And so if you put crappy content out, it's going to de-emphasize your content, and it's going to bury your content so nobody watches it, including you can actually have people that follow you, like you, and they won't see your content. They can completely bury your content. And so monetization isn't just, hey, you're trying to make money. It's this, nobody's ever going to see your content. But let me ask you, as I understand it, I actually think that there is an impact for loan officers and real estate agents, and specifically ones that subscribe to different services or different technologies that create content for them. And you might even, from the simplistic point, if you get Mortgage Market Guide or now, MBS Highways weekly post and you automatically repost it, that's a very stale post. It's inauthentic and not original, and they will de-emphasize that. And as they de-emphasize that, they de-emphasize, you get a cloud over your total, content. Is that right, or is that wrong, do you think?
Um, it depends. There's so many variables. If someone is just, if that's all they're doing, then yes, absolutely puts a cloud over your content. But there's so many variables at play with
Yeah.
engagement, with growing your influence on social media, that there's not just one thing that's going to make or break you. That's the approach that you have to come at it from, is what content are you putting out? What's the variety? What's the mix? How personal is it to you? And even, our company creates content for loan officers where they may not be involved as much, but we coach, encourage, and tell people to mix a lot of your own videos and posts in with that stuff. So, no one wants to be sold. Very few people go onto social media to buy something or to be sold something. They want to be entertained, they want to be educated, they might want to be just keep up to date with what's going on in the world, whether it be news or whatever. So yeah, there's not one thing that's going to bury them or make them rise and increase their influence.
Yeah, yeah, good. And then as I understand it, I saw an Inman article on this last week, and the author was cautioning real estate agents because they use a common, I think it's a common subscription product, where that subscription product will download images from the MLS and create like a video track from that, and
Hmm.
then back up some music on it, and then create some chat bot description of the property. And that the fear is that stuff right there, which is not original content and is completely generated, will be de-emphasized, and then it will really, and it's a super common way that agents, get their properties on social media, and then that will actually be a huge detriment in the future.
I'd love to see some statistics around, because as many people as you and I are connected with, Ron, on social media that are either in mortgage or real estate, we see those posts of house just listed. Right? I'd love to see some. I'm gonna see if I can find some statistics on how effective those actually are, because it's not great content for social media. It's not the way to, it's not the best way to get word out that your house just listed. And it's kind of almost, again, people don't go onto social media to be sold something. They're not looking to buy a
Yeah.
house from the first time they see it on social media. If they happen to come across it, great. But yeah, I'm going to do some research on that to see the effects of it.
Especially if it's regurgitated content other places.
Yeah,
And
especially that.
Just one other comment, David. I'd just like to remind everybody that we do video production and editing if you need help with video.
We do. We do.
Yeah.
Let's one more time because I'd love to see some comments. I believe I can only see comments if you're commenting on the little Nessie channels. So YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're probably gonna start streaming to Instagram and TikTok in the near future, but we're not quite yet. But best two thought-provoking questions or comments in our feeds. We're gonna pick two winners and send you a free t-shirt. But Ron, you ready to get to your three topics of the day?
Well, I just want to encourage the Stowers clan that's watching. If you make a comment, use an alias. And we'll take a large, please.
All right,
Yeah, let's go.
Let's get to our topics.
All right.
This is going to be the third one I think we talk about, but these aren't necessarily in the right order.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting topic, and it came from a Bloomberg article, and the article was fantastic. The name of the article, which is misleading, is Trump's interest rate obstacle is bigger than Powell. And Trump, like many presidents, is really trying to pressure the Fed to lower interest rates, which makes sense. Lower interest rates really put the, get gas pedal to the economy, really, drives up GDP, it lowers the cost of debt for the United States. It's all good until it creates massive inflation, and then it's all bad. And so in the Bloomberg article, and we have a few slides on this, but the authors at The Economist cite, hey, look, there is a ton of upward pressure in what's called the natural rate. You might know it as the neutral rate, or R star, and that is where short-term interest rates are pegged where they're not qualitative easing or qualitative tightening. They're neutral. They don't have an impact. And the whole point of the article is that I'm going to call it the R star. The R star, we've had 3 decades of that neutral rate or the natural rate improving, where it went from, greater than 3% down to, I think it was actually at 5% and went down to 1.7%. And now we're in a cycle where it's increasing and it's freaking everyone out, and they want to impeach, Chairman Powell, and they're crying bloody murder. And if you're in our industry, the analysts in our industry, the people we follow are crying like, hey, the Fed is killing us. But the truth is, there's a whole lot of pressure upward on this natural rate. And if you're a loan officer, I highly encourage you to read this article. And if you can't access it because it's behind a paywall, you can ping me. I'm happy to send it to you. I've done extensive posts on LinkedIn and videos about this article. But Dave, if you want me to get into the technical aspects, I'd really love to do it.
Ron, are you actually covering that topic right now? That was just supposed to be a teaser.
Oh, we did the teasers to start off with, Dave.
Did we already do the teasers?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we had done the teasers yet.
Yeah.
And this is just water.
Really? How come? This is my beer cup that was full before the hour of technical difficulties.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No, we did the teasers already, so I thought you just started changing the order. I was going for it, dude. But here's some of the things that were happening that in the 3 decades that drove, the natural rate down. And Dave, I think you have some charts on this that will help us.
Yep.
And let me just go in order. So here's the first one. The first one is the baby boomers from the 60s to 2000 and say 18. They were making lots of money and they were just saving it. And a lot of those savings went into buying bonds, buying treasuries. And so they were supporting, and that's demand. And as it's simply a supply and demand. And so boomers were creating a whole lot of demand, right? Which was driving the price of treasuries down. Now that boomers are retiring, and on this chart, what you see is boomers are now selling their treasuries. They're liquidating their treasuries. So they're no longer suppressing the supply, they're adding to it. And that's adding a lot of upward pressure. Something to really pay attention to. That's what this graph shows. Next one. This is another really, really important one. When we had this massive trade imbalance with China, as well as Saudi Arabia, the only way that they can manage their currency was taking that trade imbalance and buying a ton of US debt. And that peaked around 2015, where they hit nearly $4 trillion in holding in US treasuries, right? But now what's happening, they no longer, as the trade imbalance is, with the current policies, as trade imbalance is starting to come back into equilibrium, they no longer have to peg their currency to the US. And so they don't care anymore, and they don't need to buy US treasuries. And so as you can see, they're starting to sell. Now they're not radically trying to sell, but they've gone from 4 trillion to like 3.25, and that's adding more supply. Saudi Arabia has done the same thing. Saudi Arabia used to be a huge buyer of US debt because they had a giant trade imbalance through petroleum, and they needed to control their currency, right? And so they would get this imbalance and then buy a ton of US debt. Today, they're not buying US debt. Instead, they're investing their money in infrastructure in the Saudi Arabia, including that $2-3 trillion development they're doing in the desert. And so they're now net sellers, and that's another problem, another headwind. Here's the other thing, and this is what you just got to really think about. In 2001, debt to GDP was 30%. 30%. And in fact, in 2001, we had a budget surplus, supply and demand. So the supply, we didn't have to sell debt because we didn't have any. We had a surplus, right? Today, we have 100% debt to GDP, and we are selling trillions of dollars of debt every single year. And so we have a oversupply going into a market with less demand, right? And that just simply means that the Fed has to keep offering higher and higher yields to be able to sell all that supply. And that's what that means. And that's why there's upward pressure on what's called the R star, or the neutral rate. And in fact, in the Bloomberg article, they estimate that the neutral rate is right now is like at 2.4, and it's going to get to 2.8 in the next couple of years. And that translates into a 5% 10-year treasury. And we know a 5-year 10-year treasury translates into a 7.5, 7.25% 30-year fixed rate. And they hypothesized how due to the neutral rate, the R star, based on all these upward pressures, it may get to as high as 6%, right? And the point as loan officers, we have to quit listening to the echo chamber of the analysts and the economists that are inside our own industry. They're feeding us what we want because they're trying to sell us something, right? And we have to look at these external economists, these other forecasts, and go, hey, what's right? Because right now we're all giddy. Oh my gosh, there's going to be an interest rate cut in September, and rates are improving right now. They're the best they've been all year. And so we think we're in boom times, right? But the truth is, long-term interest rates are headed up, period. There's just way too much supply right now. And as you saw this week, the demand was very weak on the long end of the curve on the auctions. When you got to the 10-year auction, very weak, very big weak response this week. As you get to the 30-year, weak response. And so, David, as you show the next and last slide, the next thing that's happening right now is, that's the first one. The next thing that's happening right now.
Ron, can I ask you something real quick here?
Yeah.
What year was it? It looks somewhere around 2008 where it really took off. Was that how much of that had to do with the Great Recession? Or
100%.
Yeah.
Right. So they got into the massive, QE, the three different QE1, QE2, QE3, and they flooded the market with cash, right? That's where they took on all that debt. But there was a market to buy it. See, now the appetite to buy isn't as weak. And here's another thing and this is a really important point, from the 1970s into 2015, the world believed in the US dollar, and the world believed in the strength, integrity of US debt. Now there's mass global fear that the Fed can no longer be trusted, that the Fed is just going to be politically manipulated, and they're not going to guard against inflation. And as the world loses faith in the Fed's ability to protect the dollar and to fight against inflation, they will refuse to buy our debt unless it just gets astronomical yields, right? Because I don't want to buy long-term debt at 3% if inflation is at 4%. Because all I'm investing in is a 1% net loss, right? And so if I have fear that they're selling me something for long term, like a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year bond or mortgage-backed security, and I'm gonna get it at buying at ultra low rates, and I'm gonna earn less than inflation, I'm not going to buy it, And so if I lose faith that the government isn't going to protect me from that loss by managing inflation, that's when the bond vigilantes ride in on their horses and just whip those bonds. They destroy them, and that can happen. And that's why we saw when the Fed, in my opinion, inappropriately cut interest rates in the fourth quarter last year. They cut 100 basis points. The bond market said, "Hey, Fed, screw you." And what happened to the long-term end of the rate? Mortgage-backed securities went up 100 basis points. We could easily see that. Like when Trump goes to replace the Fed governor who just resigned, if he puts a total patsy in there, or if he puts a complete patsy as a Fed chairman, the global markets will not like that, and they will punish us, and you will see rates go up. And David, I'll get off my high horse. This is even my rant, by the way. I'll go off my high horse, and I'll say, can you get to the yeah, there you go. So you can see here, there's the natural, the natural rate, the neutral rate, the R rate. You can see that it got to 1.7. That was great, but now we're already well above that at 2.3 or whatever it happens to be. And they think it's going to go as high as 5, and that would be a catastrophe, or even 6 if we have total mismanagement. But here's the actionable point, and I'm not being chicken little about this. I'm not trying to scare you. And we could have a world war tomorrow that could bring rates down. We could have all sorts of disturbances. But though a recession that we've always counted on to help strengthen rates may not help, because instead of a recession, we might have stagflation, which is the worst of all things. That's where we have lowering, we have less employment, and we have inflation at the same time, which is not good, which is a very likely outcome. But here's the thing: I would advise loan officers that we need to be great advisors. I would be really careful about hinting or suggesting to my borrowers that, hey, look, don't worry, take the rates today, they're going to be better tomorrow. I would not take that position. That is a irresponsible position, in my opinion. I would say, hey, look, the benefit of home ownership, or the benefit of having a mortgage, is that if rates improve, you get to improve your position. And I'm here to help you manage that. And as soon as there's an opportunity that makes sense, I promise you that I will help you capitalize on it. Now, that may be tomorrow, it may be in a year, it may be in 5 years, but when it comes, we'll capitalize on it. But I would not promise. And I can tell you right now, the loan officers that have promised that to their clients the last couple of years are having a really hard time. Those are the loan officers that sold, 1-0 buy downs, 2-1 buy downs, promising by the time the buy down was done, they're going to get them a lower rate, and they couldn't, right? Or I'm not going to get on my soapbox on marry the rate and date the house again, but that's strategy. So just be really careful on what you're advising. The next thing that I would say is, here's the thing: I think you're going to have dips. Like, I think we might even see interest rates dip another quarter point to rate here in the next 30, 60 days, but it's going to be temporary. And so what you need to do, and what any loan officer needs to do, is whoever's looking for a lower rate, you have to have them fully apt. You have to have a strike price or strike rate agreed upon. And when you get into the neighborhood of that rate, you need to act immediately. And we had this little boomlet. I love that Brian Hill came up with that term, boomlet, refi boomlet, in the third quarter of last year, in September of last year. Only 10% of the pipeline closed because loan officers left their pipeline unlocked because either them or their borrowers were greedy for a lower rate. These rate opportunities are going to be super small windows. Lock them as soon as you get to them. If you have to renegotiate the rate because it goes past where you think, great. If you have to refinance them again in a few months because rates keep going, great. That is a much better outcome than having an unprotected pipeline that disappears overnight, because I'm telling you, there is so much jeopardy on higher rates. You cannot leave your borrowers exposed to the market. Anyway, Dave, I can keep ranting, but this is my rant. So what do you think?
I was gonna ask you a question, but you kind of just answered it, because rates, was it just today or yesterday where they hit a low for all year?
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
mean, it's a low by a few tenths of a point. It's like 2.57, depending on which survey you're looking at.
sure, but we're in August, so we're 8 months
Yeah.
into it. So that's what I was gonna ask, because I've got one client who put out a video and he's predicting that rates are gonna be in the low sixes at the end of the year, if not in the high fives. But you do not subscribe to that
I
philosophy, do
do
you?
not subscribe to that. I do not at all. I do think they will go down lower temporarily. But I mean, Dave, okay, we're going to issue another like $1 trillion of new paper, and we have the reissuance of another $1.5 trillion. So we have like $2.5 trillion of paper coming out to the market. At the same time, by the way, which is I think is a good thing. The other countries have now agreed to do 3.5% of their GDP for military spending, which is great. But they're going to have to borrow money for that, right? And France and Germany are going to start to borrow massive amounts of money, and those bonds are going to compete with our bonds. And right now, that might look more attractive than our bonds, right? And I mean, there's just so much jeopardy on this whole supply and demand. And I would just be super cautious about being optimistic about rates improving. And I would be opportunistic that if they get near what your borrowers need, leap on it. And like I said, if you're wrong, renegotiate or refinance down the road. But do not miss the window. Do not miss the window. And I'm Dave. If we go sideways at the Fed, like we nominate a couple patsies. If the world thinks the president can influence or any president can influence interest rates down, you are going to see rates radically rise.
Do you not? You're saying you don't think they can affect them at all?
The Fed can impact the overnight cost of funds. Now, the Fed and the Treasury do have some other tools, right? And so here's what's happening right now, David. The Fed is rebuying a lot of short-term debt. They're rebuying. First, they're issuing the government debt on the short end of the curve. They're issuing T-bills. They're issuing even like 3 months, 60-day, 90-day, 1 year, 2 year debt, like really short-term debt, right? Well, they're issuing that, which is causing, a big, and then they're buying it themselves. They're buying their runoff and they're buying it. So that is suppressing price on the short end. But then that makes the long end less attractive, right? And so the Fed can actually start to impact long-term rates if they want to buy the long end of the curve. If they want to buy 10-year, I know the 10-year, 20-year, 30-year end of the curve. But the problem is then they're locking U.S. debt into a higher expense, and they don't want to do that. Because if you put all that debt that's maturing that you have to reissue and you put it at 5% instead of 2%, that is going to completely screw up your budget and completely screw up the deficit. So then you have to actually issue more debt to cover your interest rate. And they're not willing to do that, but they could control the long end if they wanted to. And when Scott Bassett took over, he suggested he was going to do that, and then he looked at it and said, nope, no way,
Yeah. All right, Ron, I'm going to push us to the next topic.
Let's do it.
But do you want to go with Rocket or Borrower Insights?
Let's do Rocket third. That is such a great topic.
Let's do it.
And I assume we're running late. That's Rocket, by the way. That's the last one.
I thought you said you wanted to do Rocket.
I said Rocket's a great topic. Let's do it last.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm a Foxtarian.
All right, let's go with this one. So we're going to talk about Borrower Insights and Borrower Buyer Insights.
Yeah. So there's three things here. ICE came out with their annual. It's called, I think, the 2025 Borrowers Insight Survey. It's really buyers, sellers, and renters. It's a giant ebook. It's 54 pages. 54 pages includes massive amounts of really useful data and at least 45 unbelievable charts. And it has all sorts of insights that you want to know if you're in real estate or a mortgage. But and you can really put them into three buckets. It's first, what do borrowers want from their lender, which is super interesting. And then the second one is what's the intention and mindset of buyers and sellers, like what's their intention of when they want to buy and what's their thoughts about mortgages and buying real estate, which is all good. And the third one, which I think is just mind-blowing, is insights into renters' point of view. And the thing is, they surveyed 2,200 people, around roughly 1,000 people who bought a home in the last 10 years, and then 1,200 renters. They came up with some really interesting data. I know, Dave, we have a few charts that we could comment on to give some ideas. This is a super interesting chart, David. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but it simply speaks to How did borrowers experience the mortgage process? And I was surprised that, and you can answer, you can answer more than one answer. That's why it adds up to more than 100%, by the way, for the mathematicians. But the thing that I found interesting, the number one frustration or the number one stress in getting a mortgage was having to deal with appraisals. I mean, having to deal with scheduling for the appointment, scheduling for follow-up, scheduling for the inspection. That the scheduling actually was the greatest friction in the transaction, which I thought was really surprising. With mortgage qualification coming tied for second, and then filling out the loan application, which today in today's digital world, that needs to go away. And you can see how it goes. The different things that people create friction. But I was surprised scheduling was number one. Are you, Dave?
Yeah, and question about that is that coming more from the sellers than the buyers or combination? Because I would think that would come more from the sellers.
It's from the buyers. So
It's
this
from the
question is directed at
buyers.
the buyers. Yeah, and you wouldn't think they have to schedule a lot, but they do want to be there with the home inspection. But all the appointments and the obligations cause friction with the borrowers, which thought was really really interesting.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the other screen since it's larger.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Finding a lender slash broker, 25%. Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. Really interesting.
Next one.
Yeah, please. And these get better. So this is really interesting. How likely are how likely are you to reuse your most recent mortgage lender for your next mortgage? And the answer was, 66% would be very happy to use their lender. And what's interesting, here's the thing that's most interesting, and they didn't have this data point in the report, but the actual recapture rate for loan officers on their past clients is like 17% or 18%. So what's the gap between, 66% would be likely, extremely likely, or very likely, and the recapture rate being around 18%. And
Oh,
the
you were
difference is,
combining the extremely and very likely?
yes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, the difference between that gap, between how come it's 66 and 18, or it could be 20 now, whatever happens, the current thing is, the difference is they can't find you. I swear to God, they can't remember your name, or they don't have your contact information, and they don't know how to get a hold of you.
I have a tough time with that, Ron, because every mortgage company has some kind of CRM with some kind of drip campaign, but they just go to junk, or I guess they go into some folder where they don't see them. Well, I guess to be honest, the last. I don't remember several of my loan officers. To be honest, the one in California. You really think
And
that's the number one reason?
yeah, because you know what, NAR did a great study on this, and it came out a few years ago, and it was something like 80% of past clients would be happy to use a real estate agent again, but like 65% of them couldn't remember their name.
Hmm. I don't know if it's because I work in the mortgage industry and I've used my own company to get my last few mortgages. Um, excuse me, but I don't really remember the loan officers that have helped me versus you and I kind of have a unique circumstance being, that we work at mortgage companies. But I remember all my real estate agents' names, but
Yeah,
not necessarily loan officers.
I don't remember any of my early real estate agent names. I do most recently because I'm good friends with them, but
Yeah.
we,
Well,
but
you're
we
a
still
lot
have to
older
explain.
than me, Ron. Remember, you're a different generation.
I proved that false last time, but not that I'm older, but I'm not different age. But we do have to explain the gap though between this extremely likely and very likely compared to the actual recapture rates.
Yeah.
And so I'm speculating, but I'm using the information from the previous NAR report to support what I'm saying. But it's still an interesting data point, And we can go
Yeah.
to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. And there was a few charts on this asked different ways. How much longer do you plan to stay in your current residence? I mean, if you look at this, 52% of people plan to move in the next 2 years. And so if you wanted to look find some level of hope, or if you wanted to have motivation to keep, in touch with your database, or motivation to reach out to, getting to consumers directly, nothing can be stronger than that. I mean, heck, half the people are going to move in the next 2 years. And that was super powerful. And if you go to this survey, like I said, they asked this questions two or three ways, and it was all super interesting. They asked it like, how likely are you to sell your house? And they also asked it, how likely are you to buy a house or buy another house? So they chopped it up a few ways. But I thought this was a pretty compelling data point.
How much is that? So the 1 to 2 years, how much has that changed if you had to look at it 5 to 10 years ago? Do you think this would be similar?
Yeah, I can't answer that other than, in 2021, 2020, 2021, 2022, even going back to 2018, the average tenure of somebody owning a home was 5 years. So
Hmm.
people were changing over, and historically it's been about 7 years
Yeah, I thought
historically.
it was seven.
And and right now it's nearly 14. And that's because of high interest rates and affordability. People don't want to get rid of their 3% mortgage to go get a 7% mortgage on a more expensive house. And they
Sure.
don't want to have to get a new tax base and all these other things. But so now the tenure of owning your home is really stretched out.
Yeah.
And so I would say this has actually lengthened, not shortened.
But the number one reason for people to move is typically life change, right? So it's a job
Mhm.
change. It's a uh, job change would probably be one of the top, but some kind of life change is the number one reason, right? Not just for
Divorce, relocation for work, job change, change in family size. There's like seven real things you look at as predictive analytics that people are going to need
right,
a
right.
house. Having a yeah, yeah. People, by the way, people have, it's amazing. I don't remember the statistic, but people have their first child, buy their first car, and buy their first house. Something like 45% of people do that all in 1 year. It's like
The-
the indicators are unbelievable.
wow. Oh my gosh. All right, next one.
This is amazing that people don't know how much equity they have. I mean, now you can argue whether a Zestimate from Zillow is right or wrong, but it takes about 5 seconds to get. And then hopefully, hopefully, if you're a loan officer, you're sending some sort of monthly value piece to your borrowers that include, an AVM and their, the benefits of refinancing or cash out. And most of us do that using HomeBot. But the fact that, and HomeBot, which has an 89% open rate, is probably one of the most successful MarTech uh, packages out there. But it surprises me how much people have no idea how much your house is worth.
I wonder what the age range of these people that were interviewed or polled
Yeah.
was. That I think that would probably play a factor if you asked. And I'm not sure which would be. I'm not sure which way it would go, but if you segmented it off into ask 20 to 30-year-olds, 30, 40-year-olds, 40, 50, or fewer, 20 to 40, 40
Yeah.
to 60, if you had to predict who would be more knowledgeable in their equity, would it be a younger generation or older generation?
Yeah, and David, I think that many of these charts are broken down by generation. They just were super visually complicated, and so we didn't include them. But you can
Yep.
actually look at it, I think.
Yeah. Well, you didn't answer my question. Who would be more educated on equity in their house?
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised, David, because boomers are actually a lot of times they are more active on the internet than our millennials. Like they're super comfortable on the internet now. You'd be surprised, but we would it'd only be a guess. I don't know. We can actually we can go back and look at the charts. I think I listed.
Yeah, yeah. I no, I don't not believe that, but comfortable with going to what platforms. I know my mom, she is very comfortable on the internet, but anytime she has to enter a username, password, or something like that, she gets super uncomfortable. But she always says, Google's my best friend. But anytime there's something that's, that could, yeah, anytime it's something to do with her personal finance or her whatever, she gets super uncomfortable. So I'm not sure. You got something
Yeah,
good?
I'm
You
not sure
you
either.
got a mouse under you, Ron?
No, I keep rolling over my headset cord, and by the way, I have a headset on because we were having technical difficulties, and I'm
Yeah.
not used to using it. So I'm jump roping on it, David, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on here.
All right, next one.
So yeah, this we just picked a handful, but of the three sections, or of the information on renters is really unbelievable. And the thing before we look at some of these things, Here's what the survey showed is that renters by and large are clueless about their ability to own a home. They totally do not understand what it takes from a credit perspective. They don't understand what it takes from a down payment perspective. They don't understand what it takes from an income perspective. They have no idea about their qualifying, ability. And yet at the same time, so they have all these misnomers. They have all this belief that's completely wrong, but at the same time they're the most uneducated group of buyers. And when I say that, in that 60 something like we might look at see it something like 62%, no 60, almost 70%, it's 75%, I think almost 75% of renters think they don't qualify for a home, yet only 18% of them have spoke to a real estate or mortgage professional. So they have all these false beliefs and they're certain they can't qualify, but they've never talked to a real estate or mortgage professional. And so I love this whole section. We're going to show a handful of the, I think, more poignant slides here. But if there's never been a stronger calling to reach out to renters than that, then I don't know what there could be. So here's what they say. 41% say they can't afford the home. 37% say I'm happy renting. 35% I haven't saved enough money. 24% say interest rates are too high, on and on and on. But they couldn't tell you what, like they don't know what the cost of owning a home is. They couldn't calculate the monthly payment. They'd have no idea. And it's really incredible. They don't have credit worthiness. You can see on and on and on. And as we break these down into other slides, you're going to go, holy smokes, they're wrong, right? So here you go. Yes, 77% believe that owning a home is beyond them at this time. Completely false, by the way, completely false. And then check this out. How much do you think you need to put down for a down payment? But I want you to keep in mind, the average down payment for a first-time home buyer in America right now is 6 to 7%. So just know it's 6 to 7% in Q2. All right, well, 32% think they have to put down more than 20%, right? And another 32% say they have to put down at least 11%. Right? So 64% are way off. The average is 6 to 7%. And we know the capability is far less. This is one of the, and if you go through this section of the renters, you'll see 15 data points like this that you just go, oh my gosh, man, I have to go. Like it's such a rich opportunity to go out to renters and show them how they can qualify and show them the benefits of home ownership and to walk them through it. And I'm going to give you a big hook at the end here on this topic.
This one's crazy to me because a lot of our clients, they're like, can we get more social media graphics about how you don't need 20% down? I was like, everyone knows that, but I'm hearing that from our clients and they're saying that no, we don't. And this just kind of validates that, which is crazy to me. But we work in the mortgage industry, so
over and over and over again, people do not know. And this next slide is just as baffling to me. So this is people's belief on what the kind of credit they need. 8% think they need over an 800 credit score to qualify for a home loan. Another 21% said over 750. And the majority, by far, of borrowers said, of renters said, I need at least a 700, right? So 60% said, I need at least a 700 credit score. And we know that's totally false. So we know that they have a misconception about their ability to qualify. They have a complete misconception on the amount of money they need to put down, a complete misconception about credit, right? They don't understand affordability. And here's the thing, excuse me, this is the hook I'm gonna give everybody. 66% of respondents said they'd be willing to buy a house if somebody could give them good advice and a reliable plan, right? So if we could show them the way, 66% of them would be happy to do it, right? So if we can pierce these misconceptions and this lack of good information and education, they would take the path. And I can't think about just a louder calling to go start knocking on doors in apartments. It's just unbelievable. Now I might do single family renters, single family resident, but whatever it means. But there's tons of opportunity out there, and it's just crazy that we're not doing a better job educating these folks.
Yeah, agreed. What else you got to add, Ron? Do we want to move to Ron's rant, or we were undecided if we're going to go with Ron's rant or not? You've ranted
And,
quite a bit. No offense.
yeah, thank you. It's been a full rant. I say no Ron rant because I really love the next topic.
I thought we did them all. No.
No, we have
Oh,
to
that's
do
right. That's right. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
rocket.
Yeah, my bad. My bad. Okay, let's
Just
do it.
we do you have
I'm
the
off to. I'm
actual
off today,
I
Ron.
know
Sorry.
that's the last slide. Can we go to the first slide on the rocket?
Uh,
The yeah,
I think I've only got this one image for Rocket, Ron.
you
I don't
do
think.
though. The person speaking to the avatar is the first image.
I don't. I think we. Where is it? Oops. I don't think I have that one. Oh, okay. Yeah, I
You
do.
have
I've
you
got
do.
it. I've got it.
I love this, and this is a little bit of self-serving. This intro slide. There was a Housing Wire had a really terrific article titled "Rocket Returns to Profitability in Q2 Yields Early Benefits from Redfin Deal," and it really was just highlighting their Q2 shareholder report. I was so I was so captivated by this. I read it a week ago, and I just kept chewing on it, and saying, "What does it all mean? What does it all mean?" And it really took me a week to find the, I think the significance in it. And so I was motivated to author an article on this, which I published on LinkedIn. I think today. It was on today, and that's the picture you see is my LinkedIn article. So Dave, thanks for using that as the intro.
You're welcome.
It had a ton of information about their financial results, which I don't really care about. But the two topics that really, really caught my attention on in their Q2 results surround AI, their use of AI, and then how they've integrated Redfin into their platform. And so let's hold off on the Redfin for a second.
All right.
So let's hold off on that one.
Yep.
So here's the thing, David. How does this strike you? So let's talk about AI. Here's the first thing, Dave. I'm gonna state this data point from their shareholder report, and I want to get your response. 80% of their clients preferred dealing with a chatbot than a human.
That's very interesting. Very interesting, because I think we've heard everyone's like, if you're on hold for 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and you're trying to go through the prompts, press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 4 for this, and you're like, just let me speak to a human. And that was kind of surprising to me, but I also at the same time understand it, where I don't need a I just want to get directly to the answer, and a chat bot can sometimes get there quicker. So that's my instant reaction.
Yeah, and I don't think that the chatbot experience is like the voicemail hell that you used to get. Like press 3 and press 2 and press
Sure.
6 and give us your number. I think now you can talk to the chatbot, tell them what you're thinking, and it can talk back to you. And I think that removes the onus of the borrower being embarrassed about their questions or feeling like they're bugging somebody or taxing them. And I think they also rely on the answers. And here's the crazy point. So 80% of their clients opted in to continuing to work with a chatbot versus a loan officer, which is mind blowing.
Yeah.
But then here's the next two crazy stats that they shared in their shareholder meeting: that when a borrower, embraced using the chatbot, they were 3 times more likely to convert than when they spoke to a human on a purchase. And when dealing with a refi, they were 2.5 times more likely to convert. And you go, whoa, man, boom, that's unbelievable. So you're telling me that Rocket's clients would prefer to talk to a chatbot or a computer, and that computer is 3 times better than me. Holy smokes, right? So then you have to ask yourself, if you're a loan officer, what role do I play in the future, right? If borrowers rather talk to a chatbot and the chatbot's better than me, then I got to check my whole card. What's my future? And you know what? I know a lot of loan officers, they immediately go, oh, a chatbot's not as good as me, and it's not as great, and that's just phony, baloney. And they have all this, all this nonsense in their head because, you need to have a little humility. You don't even know what that chatbot does or why those borrowers are delighted by it. You have to learn about it, and then you have to figure out, how are you going to beat it? How are you going to be better than it? Because the question isn't, there's been a question that we've discussed, and has been a topic is, our chatbots, our avatars, are they going to replace loan officers? That's no longer the question. The answer is yes. Chatbots are going to replace, and avatars are going to replace loan officers. They're super well trained. They're exceptional listeners, right? They're available 24/7, and they're free, right? That makes them pretty damn good loan officers. And where like a loan officer might ask a couple of qualifying questions, avatar chatbot AI is going to ask exactly the right questions, and they're going to ask dozens of questions. They're going to build a lifetime journey, and they're going to link that journey into the CRM and their marketing, and they're going to be relevant their whole life. It's unbelievable. They're not going to complain about having to follow a sales process, or they're not complaining about having to use technology or having standards, or they're not going to complain, about using the right scripts. They're just going to do it, right? And so these chatbots, these avatars are going to replace loan officers. The only question left is it going to replace you? That's the question. Will it replace you? And if you don't want to be replaced, well, what are you going to do differently? I'll let you comment in a second, David. And Steve Brown, I remember, the futurist from DeepMind and Google. I remember him like 8 years ago, and he was talking about Amazon, because Amazon was eating up the entire retail space and putting all sorts of companies out of business and scaring everyone. And he said, look, it's really simple in today's world. You just have to do whatever Amazon doesn't do. And he came up to say, do what Amazon doesn't do. Well, today, if you're in real estate or if you're in mortgage, you have to do what Rocket doesn't do, or what Rocket can't do. And you have to do what AI can't do. Now, with Rocket, it's synonymous when you say AI and Rocket, but you have to go, how can I can't beat Rocket at Rocket. I can't beat Rocket probably at AI. So how do I do what they can't do? And you have to find those spaces in the market, and then you're going to have the abundance. But if you're just fighting up against them and you don't even know what you're fighting against, it's a losing battle. Dave, do you have thoughts on that before I keep ranting?
You and I chatted about this a couple days ago, and I asked the question of when Rocket came out with their new marketing campaign, 2015 ish, push button get mortgage.
Yep,
I
2016
asked
at the
you the
Super Bowl.
question. What's that?
2016 Super Bowl ad.
16. I asked the question if you really thought that they or other people knew the landscape that we would be in, 10 years later. Because I was uh, the company I was at the time, Movement. We were teaming up with, I think it was IBM at the time, and we were jazzed about these robots doing the underwriting, but that was the terminology we were using back then, was robots. But now I I never had the foresight to really understand where we'd be 10 years later with the evolution of AI and what it's become now. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Do you think Rocket or other companies really truly knew what it was going to turn into 10 years ago and what it is now?
100%. I
Yeah.
think that when Rocket rolled out push button get mortgage, they knew that they couldn't deliver that. That only something like 8% of people had that happy path of that digital mortgage path. But it was a wonderful marketing scheme, and it was an aspiration. It was like, look, I hear you, consumer. The mortgage industry hasn't changed for 4 decades. We keep being one way, do it our way, and we're tone deaf to what the customer wants. But whether we actually can do it today or not, what we're working towards is push button, get mortgage. And today they've achieved that. And that's what they said in their shareholder report, which is one of the things I think you're alluding to. They said they now have mastered a fully digital experience where a borrower can get fully qualified on a mortgage in 30 minutes or less. And their goal, it was specifically to a refi, by the way, a refi in 30 minutes or less. And their goal is to get it to under 10 minutes. And I
Mm.
don't mean like a hokey, I mean a fully underwritten, few conditions, ready to go, mostly property conditions, ready to go. And they are delivering now that push button get mortgage. And it was in their shareholder report, which is, now that, David, that used to be a big deal. When they did that 10 years ago, it scared the hell out of the industry because nobody was close to that. Today, all sorts of companies are close to, and vendors are close to realizing that. So that's not as much of a differentiator. It's just one more thing they're doing. The other thing, by the way, which I didn't mention, they have increased their contact rate using AI bots by 20% with their borrowers. And with that, the borrower satisfaction has gone through the roof, which is crazy.
They've
It's just
increased their what by 20%?
they have their contact rate with borrowers by 20%,
Oh, wow.
using bots 24/7, and that has really increased the borrower experience. They get really, really good feedback. So and one other thing, yeah, so that's on the AI side, which is just holy smokes. And if you read my article, after I detail these things about Rocket, I give a roadmap about how to compete. I give, hey, here are the 5 things I would do if I wanted to compete with Rocket. Here's how I'd beat Rocket. Here are the things I would do if I wanted to beat AI. Because that's what you have to really start doing, and you have to start moving in that direction. And so check out the article. I know we're not going to be able to get those 5 things, but I do want to point out one other thing. So, and by the way, just as a side note, their financial results were super strong. Just in case you're curious, their year-over-year sales results, they were up almost 20% year-over-year. By almost every metric, except for their expenses were up and their margins were down, they were slaying it now. But that's just, so it blew my mind, that whole, AI, experience. But then we get to the Redfin integration, which happened mid-quarter to them, right? And David, I'm gonna mention just a few things here. I'm gonna mention 3 unbelievable statistics. So they've been able to put a request pre-approval button on every single Redfin listing. Every single house listed on Redfin, right? How many times do you think that button was pushed in just what is a partial quarter?
5
Dave, did I
million?
lose you?
No.
It was 200,000 times. 200,000 times. So somebody on the Redfin platform looking at houses saw the button and said get pre-approved 200,000 times, and it wasn't a complete quarter. 200,000. Now, do you know how many of those 200,000 that were? I can't remember the word they used. That were
Converted?
What?
Converted?
Contactable. Yeah, you want to take a guess how many they actually could contact of those 200, like gave legitimate information and answered the phone when they called?
By percent?
Either way,
30%? 40?
23%. So
Okay.
that means of the 200,000 that said, hey, I'm interested in getting pre-approved, 46,000 people answered the phone when they called. 46,000. It's not even a full quarter. Now, of the 46,000, how many do they convert to a full app?
20%? No, I'm not frozen.
12%.
You're putting me on the spot, and I'm having to really try to think. Okay, so I guessed
but you're
20,
not far
it was
off.
12.
Yeah, so 200,000 in their first quarter, not even the full quarter, 200,000 people went, I want to get pre-approved, right? Then 23% actually answered the phone when they called, which is 46,000, and then they converted 12 of them to an application. That's crazy. That is super crazy, right? And then on top of that, Redfin real estate agents referred another 7,000 buyers to Rocket Mortgage on top of that.
So the acquisition is paying for itself, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and they haven't even, and now you can go to that virtuous cycle if you want, but
yeah,
it's just at its infancy, and they haven't even onboarded Mr. Cooper yet, right? And this goes to their strategy, which I love their strategy. And the best way to look at this is they're creating a virtuous cycle, and a virtuous cycle is when a business feeds itself. And so in Rocket, you got to look at they have 3 funnel strategies. They have top of the funnel, above the funnel, top of the funnel is Redfin. Redfin gets those 50 million buyers coming in the top, right? Or whatever that annual number is, 62 million monthly visitors, top of the funnel, right? And then the lead falls into the funnel, which Rocket companies, including Rocket Mortgage, converts and delights the customer. And then it comes out the bottom of the funnel and is serviced by Mr. Cooper. And Rocket has a 93% recapture rate on their clients. And so that puts them back to the top of the funnel where they go through it again. That's what this is showing, a virtuous cycle where it feeds itself. And if they can put a fence around their client, keeping 83% of their clients, that's unbelievable. And I know I can tell you for certain that they're also deploying really dynamic prospecting plans of farming their current database of first clients for new clients. They have all sorts of new client outreach using their current clients. And that is just ferocious, just ferocious.
Ron, I've got a comment on social media. I'd like to play it real quick, but it's been a while since I've built this out, so I'm not sure if it's going to work, but there we go. It's actually from the one and only, my one and only son, Aiden King. What, if any, things in the mortgage industry do you guys think will never be replaced by AI? That's a great question.
It's such a good question. It's such a good question. I did a video the other day on this, David, and I was saying, hey, here's how you beat AI. And you know, AI is super talented. I can't even explain to you how well they're teaching these avatars, how great to be loan officers, and you know, all the scripts and the sales process, everything, the whole, you know, financial planning, literacy is super great. And then linking their lifetime journeys to it. But here's the thing, if you're sitting, you know, if you're either on the telephone or you're sitting across the table from a borrower and you can just feel their stress and their fear and their anxiety, you know, what we can do is hit pause and go, hey, David, I see your stress here, your anxiety. Can you explain that to me? And I can empathize with you and I can honor your emotion and I can join you in your emotion. I can create space for it. AI can't create space to honor that feeling. It's just not something they can do. Now they can train it to be falsely empathetic, which the borrower may be offended by, but they know that the machine can't feel it, and that's what they want to be. They want to be felt. They want to be seen, and a machine can't fully do that. Only a human can in a human way.
I was going to go all Ron on you and push back on what you just said, but you beat me to it. Because I quite often, I don't really doubt, but I'm a skeptic of AI. It can't do this yet, or can't do that yet. And you always push back on me, and we're like, it either can or it will soon. And you started talking about how it can't show that empathy. I'm like, have you ever seen the movie? Is it Her, with
Or yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix? I was like, have you ever seen the movie Her? It can show empathy. If it doesn't right now, it will soon. But your point is valid that it's fake empathy, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely being trained to understand human emotion, to
Yeah.
recognize it, and then what to do with it. But that doesn't mean it connects, right?
Right.
It doesn't. And one of the problems that AI, and one of my suggestions that I say on how to beat AI, well, it's counterintuitive. If you want to beat technology, if you want to beat AI, slow down, right? All technology is built to go fast, 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 fast. We don't know if the consumer wants the speed, but we just know it's built for speed. And when you build stuff for speed like that, you don't let the moments happen that need to happen. You don't let them breathe. You don't let them, you just don't let them be alive and honor it and all this kind of stuff. Slow down. You know, if you want to be different than a machine, slow down, right? And that's definitely one of the ways. The other thing I would tell you, David, and I don't want to go through my whole 5-point roadmap here. You can check it online. But I'll tell you something else. What can't Rocket do? What can't AI do? They cannot get belly to belly. They cannot physically get belly to belly. They can't shake hands. They can't give hugs. You know, you're not going to see a Rocket loan officer coaching the Little League team. You're not going to see a Rocket loan officer at the PTA meeting, you know. So you can be uber visible in the market you serve. You can be uber present. You can be physically present and aware. You can, you know, and connected to your clients. Rocket can't do that. And so I would, you know, if I'm a loan officer, I tell loan officers all the time, you want to beat Rocket, you want to beat AI, you want to beat the call centers, you want to beat the servicers, then start doing home buying seminars. Because you know what? They're not doing that. Get in market and do home buying seminars, right? You know, that is a way to do something that Rocket can't do something that AI can't do, right? It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. But if you just stick your head in the sand and, hey, this isn't going to impact me, my clients will never go there. False. Totally false. You know, David, when Quicken really started, when Rocky used to be Quicken and they started eating up a little bit of market share, I used to love to, I'd go in and I'd talk to, loan officers and I'd ask them, or I'd be recruiting a group. I go, hey, who's your number one competitor? And they'd give me, and of course, because they didn't look up the numbers and I would look up the numbers before I'd meet with them. And they go, who's your number one competitor? And they would tell me somebody, Wells Fargo or Chase or whoever happened to be back then, because banks were super big, right? And I go, nope, your number one competitor is Quicken Loans. And they're like, that's impossible. I've never lost a loan to Quicken Loans. When I go against them, the rates are high. This is 15 years ago. The rates are high. They never beat me 10 years ago. And I'm like, that's great, but you don't know the clients that they took before you had the opportunity to talk to them. If you go look at the market share in your market, they're number one in your market and you don't even know. They're taking your clients that you don't even know about. And that is still true today, but it's only growing.
Yeah. Well, Ron, we are at an hour and 10 minutes almost, and our goal was to not go any more than an hour, which I don't care. Who cares? But we also had a Ron's rant as well, but we'll skip that. We'll save that. I feel like you've ranted enough, Ron. I'm
Sorry
gonna
about
save you
that.
from yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, no, David, we maybe need to go Joe Rogan and go 3 hours.
Hey, I don't doubt that we could.
Yeah.
But anyway,
We
let's
we
end
got
with
enough
that.
material for at least an hour.
Those were
But no,
some great, very interesting. That the buyer seller insights was a little bit mind boggling to me. But yeah, we'll get into it next week. But anyway, hey, join us next week, next Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and depending on the time of year or the state that you're in, it could be 12 or it could be 1.
and the state of our technology,
And the state, yeah. So, but hey, if you've joined us today, we appreciate you joining. We've got some, Aiden said, bust out the cigars Rogan style. So I guess I don't really have good fans in here or whatever. So no cigars here, but hey,
Aiden,
thanks
you're
for
awesome.
joining us. We'll be back next week, next Thursday for happy hour with Little Nessie. So take care.
Thanks so much, everybody.